day.
Dan made a very good point when he was speaking about Josh Allen and talking about the fact that we've had years where Patrick Mahomes has been great and been the best player in ball, but he's turned the football over. I think you're going to get turnovers where he is now because he feels like he has to do so much. What you watched with Patrick Mahomes against the Las Vegas Raiders was very similar to Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Yeah. It seemed like a guy that felt I had to do everything myself. It brings me back to Giselle walking out of the Super Bowl saying Tom can't throw it and catch it himself. Yeah. Yep. Patrick Mahomes seems like he's trying to throw it and catch it himself, and it's hard to settle down the great ones. It's hard to say that you don't have to go above the X's and O's, that you don't have to do more, because the great ones feel that when the rest of the team isn't playing up to the level I expect them to, I can raise their level of play. And so I believe that he will throw an interception in this game, and we know that Lou Anarumo and that defense will be chomping at the bit after what Mason Rudolph was able to do last week.
To the question, how much is Patrick Mahomes to blame for the Chiefs' struggles? If I took the 53 players on their football team and then head coach, play caller, or offensive coordinator, defense, that's 57, he would be 57th.
Oh.
He would be 57th. You know how hard it is to play quarterback in the NFL when both of your tackles are struggling, you can't get a run game going, you don't have a viable person or reliable person to, one, do the right thing, see it the right way, as the same as you, and then also catch it? There is an incredible amount of pressure on Patrick to play perfect football. Yeah. Patrick's never been in this world outside of that Super Bowl run. I think the question is this for Kansas City. And part of me thinks the answer is yes, but I understand if people think it's crazy. Can you play one clean month of football?
But it's one clean game. Like, let's go back to the big game, Baltimore against San Francisco. Lamar Jackson was the best player on the field. Sometimes it was a throw, sometimes it was with his legs. What I'm saying is, with so much on the line this weekend, Patrick Mahomes has to be the best player on the field. He will them to victory. I think he plays a clean game, and maybe it's a scramble in the third quarter.
Yeah, but Mike T, here's the pushback I have on that. Will him to victory doesn't make the offensive line hold the ball or hold people less and get in from 2nd and 6 to 2nd and 16. And then we're in long down and distances and we can't protect. Will them to victory doesn't mean that, somebody's going to catch the ball on a consistent basis. That has to happen. That's my point. Because we have conversations about playoff football teams and we know they're not capable of better play. We just know they're a good team. Right. They don't have the talent. Kansas City has the talent.
But do they? And I think that's the point. Their quarterback is extremely talented.
Yes, right?
They're normally most reliable receiver in Travis Kelce doesn't seem to be himself from a physical standpoint. Right, I believe that he could start to catch the football. But what we've seen from the other guys, I believe, is who they are. The one dude on that team that I believe does have the talent that can step up is Rashee Rice. Yeah. Right? And using him in the right place. Isaiah Pacheco is part of that equation as well. But that's on Matt Nagy, too. And I think the one thing Patrick Mahomes won't do is accept it. Right? Patrick Mahomes won't get his 2nd and 16, know his tackles can't hold up, and say, you know what, I'm just going to throw the check down because we need the play.
No, I can go make up for this.
That's going to be a problem.
The big news, obviously, the week, the benching of Russell Wilson in Denver, and we've talked all about the way it's been handled and the financial reasons for the decision, everything. But I want to talk about Russell Wilson because you go back a year and a half, right? We were talking about, well, what can he get himself to the Hall of Fame? Is he already a Hall of Famer? The time he has spent in Denver, and I know you were never completely sold on the idea of Russell Hall of Fame, but as the time he spent in Denver, what damage has that done to his legacy?
To clear that up, I've never had, I didn't have a Russell Hall of Fame argument. I had a Russell makes your team an immediate Super Bowl contender discussion. I think when you look at his statistics, his ability to, having won a Super Bowl, what he's accomplished in Seattle, I thought he was on a Hall of Fame trajectory for sure, but this has definitely tainted Russell Wilson's Hall of Fame candidacy. On the other side, it's also, to me, tainted him personally. Some of the stories you heard about Russell Wilson, just as the player, some of the things you heard about Russell Wilson and the way that he behaved in the building, whether it was having offices or having his coach around the building, some of those things that we heard once Nathaniel Hackett was fired. Now, Sean Payton comes right in and says, okay, we're not going to do those things. What does Russell Wilson do? He never comes back and says anything publicly. He changes who he was around the building. Sean Payton is publicly berating him on who he is as far as kissing babies, wanting to be a politician and all those things, and still he shows you the professionalism. Now, when you look at the play says if Russell Wilson can go somewhere next year, sort of have a resurgence, there's going to be another conversation about him being a Hall of Famer. He's going to be one of those guys that probably doesn't get in on the first ballot, but does get in. And I think what we've learned about him this year is that Russell Wilson is about the business of football. He's about showing you that in whatever circumstance it is, I can do my best to adjust, adapt, and be something different for the people in my building. And I think that was a huge step for me of not only understanding him, but having more respect for him for what he does within organizations.
And then, RC, to move that story forward to next year, guys, like Baker Mayfield, and we talked half the show about Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson could go start next year. There are going to be a dozen teams that need a starting quarterback. I would put him in New England and say, hey, you got to blow up that quarterback room. Bailey Zappi, you're a grade 3. I'm going to start Russell Wilson. I'm going to draft somebody for the future.
I like that in New England.
Yeah. Or Pittsburgh, what's Russell Wilson with that Pittsburgh defense? There's going to be a dozen teams that need a quarterback. So if I'm Russell Wilson, I say, you know what? I swallow hard. It's disappointing. But you know what? 2024 is right around the corner, and I'm going to see Baker Mayfield resurrect his career. I'm going to do the same.
The legacy is unquestionably negatively impacted.
Sure.
He was a Hall of Fame trajectory the last 2 seasons. I'll say this, the last year of 2022 did not go well. This year has gone well. But you're now having an organization that is basically saying, we are going to admit this is the worst trade in the history of the NFL. This trade and the Deshaun Watson trade right now look like 2 of the worst trades in the history of the NFL. Obviously, the Watson one is a little bit of a, we'll see how it ends. It seems like this one's over.
Yes.
So that is absolutely going to hurt his legacy when it comes to what is he as a Hall of Famer. My issue is like this, outside of, believing it was handled unquestionably poorly. Dude, he was on track for 30 touchdowns and 10 picks this year. That's we're just moving on from that, and we're just living in this world where that's not really good quarterback play.
It's not, I don't think people are. I don't think that's really the question. No, because I can be honest. When I watch the film doesn't always tell me that Russell Wilson is playing great from the position. Like when you can look at it statistically, you can say those things. But what it is Russell Wilson is doing what he's asked to do, and he's making the plays at a high level in critical football moments,
right,
at least until the last 4 games. Russell Wilson wasn't going to outplay the biases of Sean Payton. Right? And I said it when he walked into the building. I said, personality-wise and schematically, style of play, this is the worst match of head coach, play caller, and quarterback in the entire NFL.
Do you think others have that, though? Like, do you think if Sean Payton had that bias of him, do we think that Bill Belichick, if he's still in New England, is gonna? Or a Mike Tomlin, if he's still in Pittsburgh, is gonna?
But first of all, go back to RC's point. I totally agree. Like, it was a matter of if not when. It only takes one. Nathaniel Hackett was like, hey, we could get to the playoffs and maybe the Super Bowl with Russell Wilson. So, Dan, it only takes one in free agency. And that's why, again, you look at Baker Mayfield. He's on his 4th team. But they said, you know what, Todd Bowles, Dave Canales.
But
but Tannenbaum, the thing with Russ, though, the thing with Russ was, There weren't questions coming out of Seattle, but for Seattle, there was always something on those teams you could point to say this helped Russell Wilson play well. This defense, this run game is the reason Russell Wilson won a Super Bowl. This was supposed to be his opportunity to sort of go out on his own and show people that I could be the reason that an entire organization rebuilds to his glory days. And the 2022 season made people feel, okay, he can't do it at all. And now 2023, to me, wasn't above and beyond to a point where you get the feeling of let Russ cook as he's leaving Seattle.
And that's the key, right? Seattle's decision was going to be 35. He's going to want close to $50 million a year. We don't think he's that kind of player. So now, right, now that didn't work in Denver, does he go the Baker Mayfield route? Can he build it?
Will he do that? Yeah.
But here's my thing. It's not the Baker Mayfield route because, one, Baker was like $12 million this year. Am I right in that number? Somewhere around there?
Yeah.
He, obviously, Russell's contract is significantly different. I look at it like this. This is why I go back to bringing that question to you, RC, because when the Rams moved on from Jared Goff, it was a massive contract, he's not good enough anymore. Not player-wise, we can't get back to the Super Bowl with him. We want a better player. When the Eagles moved on from Carson Wentz, it was, he's not good enough anymore. We can't get back to the Super Bowl with him. That's like the play doesn't align with that theory that he's not good enough anymore player-wise. And so you're going to eat all that money and all those picks off of we don't like you.